As we step into 2025, one thing is clear: de-dollarization is not stopping, it's accelerating. China and other BRICS nations are scared of President Trump, and it's making them more determined to reduce their dependence on the US dollar and establish themselves as a global economic superpower. Their secret weapon? Gold. In fact, China resumed buying gold. And you know what's even more telling? They underreport their buy. Doesn't it make you wonder why? They recognize its global value and its ability to withstand economic shocks. Gold is a global asset with innate value. It's tangible, reliable, and it's immune to economic manipulation. China and other BRICS countries want to be prepared. They just don't want it to be known. But this isn't about nations. It's about you. In a world of shifting economic power, gold is your personal hedge against uncertainty. That's why Noble Gold Investments can help you secure your financial future with gold. Visit noblegoldinvestments.com today to learn more. And with a qualified account, receive 10 1-ounce silver American Eagle coins. That's noblegoldinvestments.com. And remember, there's always a risk of investment and there's no guarantee of any kind. Well, everyone, welcome to the podcast. We have with us Mr. Norman Traversy, and we're excited to have him. Many of you have been asking about the Canadian perspective, about what does Canada do? What is Canada's position on making itself free and sovereign in the modality of the United States? And many of you who watch us from Canada have had those questions, so we wanted to satisfy that need and appetite, and this fine gentleman is going to do his best to address said issues. So we brought him on today, and we're going to be querying him on a number of subjects. Now, if you are new to the podcast, please do like, subscribe, and share so that others can gain in the knowledge you've been afforded. And as we always do with new guests, as you know, we're going to read their bio verbatim. So this is the bio of Mr. Norman Traversy, and it is as follows. After getting severely injured fighting fires, he was summarily fired due to the injuries. The city of Mississauga and the workers' insurance company conspired to defraud him of any benefits. Unfortunately, they were successful. When he saw how corrupt Canada was, he decided to take action. In 2019, he was criminally charged by Justin Trudeau, who thankfully is gone, with corruption and malfeasance in public office. He was locked out of the courtroom, and the hearing was held behind closed doors.
Excuse me, I wasn't criminally charged by Justin Trudeau. I charged Justin Trudeau.
Touche. Thank you for clarifying that. It was stayed for a lack of evidence. A number of people who witnessed this and began to organize. Word got out and a movement was born. He found a loophole in Canada's intellectual property laws and copyrighted several Canadian laws to include the Charter of Rights, the Freedoms, the Bill of Rights, the Firearms Act, and the Criminal Code. Lawyers and other legal professionals put together a 192-page legal briefing outlining Trudeau's and his government's crimes and malfeasance. On July 1st of 2020, he gave a speech to thousands of people on Ottawa's Parliament Hill. They marched to the American Embassy, where he was delivered the legal brief. He received a receipt from the Trump White House. Some of the people at the march stayed in contact and started organizing the Freedom Convoy. In January of 2022, he was part of the reception committee that organized security, logistics, as well as food and accommodation for a number of truckers. Canada is supposedly a constitutional monarchy, but it has neither a constitution or a monarch. Norm, welcome to the podcast. How are you doing today?
Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks for being here. We appreciate your time and expertise. So let's start at the top. A lot of Canadians, I think, as a generic form, are frustrated and want change. I think this we know. And there's been a series of helplessness and so forth. When you and I talked back in December, this was prior to the announcement of Trudeau's resignation. Now that that is in process, what are your thoughts on that? And what do you feel are the chances of Canada becoming a 51st state? And do you even think that's a good idea?
First, I think it's a good idea. Okay. And I'm no expert, but I do know experts. And we do not have a constitution. We're supposed to be a constitutional monarchy. So the way we're set up, you know how the American system works. Our system has the monarch as the ruler. Now that monarch, this is in theory, that monarch allows us to form a government. So the prime minister is called the prime minister because he is a minister of the crown. When any law is passed in Canada, it must get what's called royal assent. which means the monarch has to agree to the law. Now, it's a rubber stamp. The monarch has never said, no, I don't like that law, get rid of it. That's never happened. But that's the polite way this is supposed to work. Now, the monarch is supposed to, what happens is the prime minister decides, oh, I'd like this person to be the governor general. Well, the governor general is the monarch's representative in Canada. So then the prime minister writes to the monarch and says, I would like so-and-so to be the governor general. Then the monarch rubber stamps it and says, okay, here is your writ of royal authority, making you the governor general, my representative in Canada. Okay, so the governor general has to sign off on all the laws. And of course, it's a rubber stamp. Okay, that is the theory. But I just found out today that someone else has also asked for this. So what I did was what's called a quo warranto, and that's Latin for by what warrant. So if a cop pulls you over, one, you've got that cop's name and badge number displayed, okay? Now, the first thing the cop is going to ask you is for your license. Do you have a license to drive? That's the very first thing. So you pull it out and you show the license. Now, if you go to a doctor, you know that doctor's license will be on the wall. You go to a mechanic, their license will be on the wall, that they're a certified mechanic. Even a hairdresser is going to have their credentials on the wall. So I wrote to the governor general and said, give me a copy of your writ of royal authority. Who made you the boss? Did the monarch make you the boss? If so, show me that in writing. And that's a very ancient writ, this writ of quo warranto. It was used on King John in, I think it was 1312. And then he had to sign the Magna Carta because of the quo warranto. So what I'm doing, I have every right to do because I am supposedly a citizen of Canada. This is supposed to be a governor general that rules over me. And by what authority? So I wrote that, and you've got copies of that. Mm-hmm. I wrote the first maybe 3-4 paragraphs, and the rest was written by legal experts, not me. And I did not come up with the idea for a quo warranto. I didn't even know what it meant a year or so ago. It was a lady that I know, a doctor, who is using it herself on her ruling body. And that's where I was given the idea to serve a quo warranto. So last April, I had it written up. And if you can display it, it's got my thumbprint, a stamp, and my signature, which makes it a contract, apparently, not just a demand. And I served that by registered mail on the governor general. Got a receipt for it. I sent you pictures of the envelopes, and no reply. So then in June, I sent a second one and no reply. Then in July, I sent a third one giving a deadline. And the deadline was August 15th, and no reply. Now, in law, in jurisprudence, 3 strikes, you're out. If I accuse you, John, of something, it's up to you to either sue me or refute what I'm saying. Now, if I do it 3 times and you don't reply or you don't refute what I've said, then you're deeming it to be true. Mm-hmm. Okay, the onus is on you. With a quo warranto, you are guilty until you prove your innocence. So you go to a dentist and you say, I'd like to see your license before you do anything. Well, if he says, well, I'm a dentist, you take my word for it. Sorry, that doesn't work. So we had the three quo warrantos and they were ignored. Then I wrote to the Judge Advocate General of the Canadian Armed Forces. And I wrote to him, you've got a copy of that as well.
Mhm.
And I said that the pretender to the office of Governor General has ignored three quo warrantos. Therefore, she is not authorized to hold the position, and she is a fraud, and she must be taken from that position and arrested. And if you don't comply, then you are part of this as well. And he ignored me. And so then, after the deadline that I gave, I wrote to the Judge Advocate Generals of every service in the American Armed Forces and told them, I gave them copies of all the documents and told them that we did not have a legitimate government in Canada. It's a fraud. And I also sent a letter to President Trump stating the same thing. I received no reply from President Trump or from the Judge Advocates Generals, but they do have copies of it. They were sent by registered mail. And, I'm not sure if they're going to act on them or what, but that's what I've done. Then someone said, well, if it's a government document, it should be in the National Archives. And if the Governor General doesn't want to show it, then go to the National Archives. So I went to the National Archives here in Ottawa, huge building that is supposed to house all the official documents of Canada.
Mhm.
And the person, the archivist I spoke with, couldn't find it. And he said, this is out of my pay grade. I'll get you an appointment with the chief archivist. And I said, when will that be? And he said, in half an hour. So the chief archivist came, a very friendly lady, nice lady, and I told her what I was looking for. I showed her my copies of the quo warrantos. I said, I need a copy of the writ of royal authority that is issued to the Governor General, any letters patent from the Prime Minister to the monarch,
Mhm.
or even a Christmas card, whatever you've got. And she said, well, give me a week. And I got back to her in a week and she said, I haven't been able to find anything, but I've got two assistants helping me and give us another week. So I gave her another week and she did email me a document showing the different governor generals, but not one writ of royal authority. So it shows that they were appointed by the prime minister, but it doesn't show that they were endorsed by the monarch. So if we don't have a legitimate governor general, we don't have a legitimate government. And even the Supreme Court judges are supposed to be deputies of the governor general. So I've gone to every length I can think of, given them every opportunity to prove me wrong.
Mhm.
And right now, I've written to President Trump and said, we do not have a legitimate government here. It's all fake. And that's why I think we will end up being the 51st state. But I think what's going to happen is every province, because we don't have a legitimate government, I think every province will decide whether or not to join the United States. So it wouldn't just be 51 states, it would probably be more like 61.
Well,
And I'd be fine with that. We've had a communist dictatorship for decades here.
mm,
You know, with Canada has been run by what's called the Laurentian elite. Basically, Canada has been run out of Quebec for decades. Pierre Trudeau Sr., Jr., Chrétien. We've had all these Quebec prime ministers. We give huge what are called equalization payments to Quebec. We pay them tens of billions every year not to quit, not to leave. We're basically being held for ransom. We're we're all Americans anyways. We share the same landmass, we speak the same language, we share the same culture. Many of Hollywood's movie stars are Canadian.
Mm-hmm.
Same with our musicians, Canadian. Uh, we would have no problem whatsoever integrating into the United States. The only possible glitch would be we operate on the metric system and you don't. You're the only
Right.
country in the world that
Right.
doesn't. So
Yeah.
maybe you'd have to accede to that.
Yeah, we Americans don't like that kind of learning and change, but at the same time, we're being in a good, positive way with the reset we've talked about financially being put into a position of good change. So we'll have to see how that all sort of transpires. But I want to go back a second to your Substack that you sent me of documents. There were numerous in scope. So what we're going to do is, with the issue of time, we're going to put those links in the description so people can reference them at their own leisure instead of taking up time with the show. But we'll include them. I've already sent them to Chris, one of our channel creators, to do that summarily when the show is edited and put out. And
here's
also, sorry,
here's the other thing that I'd like to mention.
sure.
Canada is a corporation
Hmm.
that is registered at Dun and Bradstreet in New York.
Much like the
And
U.S.
yeah, we're a corporation. And what's bizarre is that I've gone on the Government of Canada intellectual property website. I first did this, I think, 5 or 6 years ago. And I typed in, when I first did it, I registered with the Government of Canada, the corporation. And then I went online and I typed in the name of a bill. I believe it was Bill C-72,
Mm-hmm.
and did a search on it on their own website, and it said no owner. So then I registered myself as the copyright owner of Bill C-72, and it charged me $50 and gave me a receipt. Well, it turned out that that website sold me the Firearms Act. I own the gun laws in Canada. So then it became kind of a hobby for me. I bought the Criminal Code of Canada. I bought the Charter of Rights and Freedoms. I bought the Bill of Rights. I bought the Emergency Act. I bought the Weights and Measures Act. And it shows me as the owner of all those laws. Now, in the States, you cannot copyright a law. The law belongs to all the people. Okay. But in Canada, the laws apparently belong to the monarch. But the monarch is not registering the copyrights. So I come in and register it, much like Michael Jackson did with the Beatles albums, the Beatles catalog.
Publishing, yeah.
He didn't say he wrote them, but he did copyright them. So
Hmm.
if you go on Google, not DuckDuckGo, but Google, and type in my name, the first thing that comes up is a link to the Intellectual Property Office of the Government of Canada. And if you click on that link, you will see the first thing that pops up is that I am the owner of the Charter of Rights and Freedoms.
Interesting. So you got a bit of
So,
leverage.
well, it's what my friend Brad calls divine mischief.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know, I'm just showing how ludicrous the whole system is,
Sure.
and that why would they sell me the Criminal Code of Canada? And apparently, now that I own the copyright, I can change it. So what I'm thinking of doing is making it an offense punishable by 10 years in prison for putting pineapple on a pizza.
Many true Italians would celebrate that for sure. I also want to mention, Norman, to the audience. I should have brought this in the beginning. I apologize, but I was busy focusing on your. As we enter 2025, de-dollarization is accelerating. China and BRICS nations are reducing their dependence on the US dollar, and their secret weapon, gold. China's buying gold, quietly underreporting their purchases. Why? Because they know gold's global value, its ability to withstand economic shocks, and its immunity to manipulation. This isn't just about nations, it's about you. Gold is your personal hedge against uncertainty. Noble Gold Investments can help you secure your financial future with gold. Visit noblegoldinvestments.com now, and with a qualified account, receive 10 1-ounce silver American Eagle coins. Remember, there's a risk of investment, and there's no guarantee of any kind. Very important bio. Norman came to me through a very trusted source in Major General Vallely, who speaks very highly of you as well. So that's why we were afforded this opportunity today. So he does come from a pedigree of people who are integrous, to say the least. One of the other questions I want to ask you, Norman, too, you talked about President Trump, and I had asked you this back when we first did our vetting process in December. Her last name escapes me, but she'll remember it. Ramona, the short, I believe, Filipino woman who was trying to run against a platform a couple of years back against Trudeau, and I had asked you about what you thought of the validity of her campaign, and I've gotten that question over many years, and I haven't been able to address it. So I was wondering if you could help sort of shed some light on what she's doing. Well, is it legitimate? Is it not? And what are you doing about it, if anything?
I'm doing nothing about it. I was 10 feet away from her when she burned a Canadian flag on Parliament Hill. And the cops were there, and I looked at the cop and I said, "Did you just see what she did?" And he shrugged and said, "Yeah." And that was it. I saw her several times in Ottawa leading a band of people around. She has said she is the Queen of Canada. I don't know how a Filipino lady gets to be our queen, but it's basically, to my understanding, it's a cult. So,
Okay, so that's kind of the short of it, basically.
yeah.
So there's
I
no,
haven't heard anything about her in a couple of years, at least.
yeah, it's gone sort of, it picked up steam in what, 21, 22, I think, and then it just kind of went silent. I didn't hear much about it after that.
Yeah, that was it. Yeah.
Okay. So you haven't heard back from President Trump, but you hear him talking vocally here, certainly in America and throughout the world, about the real possibility of Canada becoming a 51st state and using sort of the potash and all the the land mass and all the gold and all the other stuff that Canada has, with it. And as you said, it's part of North America. So I think he's got discussions about, the Gulf of America and kind of this Amero move of, US, Canada, Mexico kind of, merging together. Do you think you have not heard back from him because he just wholly plans to merge Canada into the US, or do you think there's maybe some other reason for that?
I think, and I think General Vallely will agree that he's not going to say anything about what he is going to do. And I've done my bit. I've sent him the documents, and I sent him documents in 2020. And those documents, I'm sure, have been read. And it's I just hopefully I gave him some ammunition
I'm
because
sure. Yeah,
yeah,
sure you
I
did.
mean, yeah, I think we've always been Americans, and that this whole Canada thing is a myth. It's a fraud. And I don't know, I put in my bio there that my ancestors, two Traversies,
Mm-hmm.
they fought for Washington. They were in the Second Canadian Regiment
Mm.
of the Continental Army of the United States. And I'm descended from one of them who was a dispatch rider for George Washington.
Wow.
So, we've been messing in your affairs for a while now.
In an effective way. So let's presuppose for the moment that Canada does become a 51st state, and all the other provinces, as you said. What, in your estimation, let's say over the next 5 years, protracted, what do you think the future is for Canada? You think it's a bright one? You think it's moderately better? How do you see it?
If we join up with the United States, sky's the limit. We're all going to prosper. We'll all prosper. And I don't know if you know this, but do you know Cheyenne Mountain, where
Mm-hmm.
they have
Yes.
NORAD?
Right.
Half the time that's commanded by a Canadian.
Hmm.
We share it. It's North America Air Defense, NORAD. And that
Interesting.
our air, I'm an Air Force brat. I was raised on Canadian Air Force bases.
Okay.
And every year in Cold Lake, Alberta, the Americans would come up and they had their giant planes and helicopters and all the rest. And they were welcome at the officers' mess, and they were very welcome. But then they would attack our base, and we would defend it. It was air exercises, joint air exercises, and the Canadians go down to Arizona every year for the same thing. So we've been working hand in glove in our armed forces forever.
Yeah. This may be off the beaten path to the point, but sort of indirectly ties to what you're talking about because uh, these little bits of information of truth sort of leak out over time of things, right? And as I told you, I grew up in New England, Massachusetts, near Springfield, which is typically known as the birthplace of basketball. But what's ironic is James Naismith himself is a Canadian, so you
Uh,
have that
the,
tie too.
the basketball was invented not far from Ottawa in a town called Almont.
Hmm,
And we have a statue there to Naismith, the
interesting.
Canadian, but it was originally invented in Canada and brought down to the States.
Hmm. Well, it just the I was thank you because I was noting the irony of that because when you grow up in the States, at least when I was growing up, you didn't hear that side of it. You heard about the foundation in Springfield and so forth. So you're not really privy to that. So it's really interesting to see the kind of like I said, the after truths that come out after the fact over time as you're digging and researching. You see how everything, to your point, is really ultimately interconnected. Um, what would be for those who are maybe the right word contrarian, what would be the downside of Canada joining US? Is there one?
No, there is no downside whatsoever. Our government is broken. It's a fraud. We do not have the same rights that you have.
Mm-hmm.
Our rights can be abrogated, as you saw with the Freedom Convoy. They just came up and beat us with clubs. You know
Yeah.
that we don't have the right to bear arms, and if they're now trying to pass a law that if you say something that the government deems as hateful, they can throw you in prison. We actually have thought crimes here.
Wow.
So we would enjoy all the rights as Americans because they'd all apply to us, and we would get rid of the shackles that we've been living with for so long.
Okay. Thank you. And then I have to ask a follow-up question to that, Norm. And this is just purely your hypothesis, right? I'm not asking you to have the end all be all answer, but alongside of the freedoms and having all the amendments and so forth as an adopted territory, if you like, uh, we're pretty much ardent purveyors on the upcoming financial global reset that's ensuing right now. It's been in the works for a while, but it's now coming into focus. What would that look like for the Canadian dollar in terms of backing it by precious metal assets like we're going to do?
We wouldn't have a Canadian dollar. We'd have an American dollar.
Okay, so it just all merge.
Yeah,
Gotcha. Okay,
it,
just
it,
needed to
it
kind of.
would be wonderful. And I don't know if you've seen the documentary about Newfoundland after 9/11.
I haven't, no.
You should watch it. All those planes landed in Newfoundland with a little tiny town of 10,000 people, and there were over 400 American planes there.
Hmm.
The people took them into their homes and took care of those people. And they went to the shops, and you didn't have to pay. Just take what you wanted, what you needed. And that's how close Canada and the US are.
Interesting. Yeah, you certainly don't want our Federal Reserve dollar. You're going to want our new U.S. note at gold back. I can promise you that. But that's being phased out now, as we can see with hyperinflation and whatnot. So, talk a little bit about, if you would, Norman, some of the rallies that you've held and sort of the feeding and clothing and sort of the humanitarian efforts that you were doing. I'd be curious to know about that.
Well, I gave a speech in 2020 on Parliament Hill,
Mhm.
and I had a 192-page legal brief that some legal people had put together for me. I think I wrote the first 2 pages of it, and they followed me to the American Embassy, and it was delivered to this legal brief was delivered to the White House. You can see the video of my speech on YouTube, Amina M, Amina M on YouTube. You can see that. That then a number of the people that were part of that march stayed together and stayed in touch, and the Freedom Convoy grew out of that. And I was not an organizer of the convoy. The truckers organized it, but I was part of the reception committee for when the convoy showed up. You know, we had local people that were organizing food, uh, all the things that happened. You know, bouncy castles, hot tubs is 40 below zero, and we had hot tubs out there, and it was just amazing to see the people come together. And I remember there was everyone, like most of the organizers, stayed at a hotel, a boutique hotel in Ottawa, and we had our own operational command center. We had ex-police, ex-military that were running it, so these people knew their business, and it was just amazing to see the level of organization.
Mm.
The room was guarded. You didn't go in there unless you had business. And it was really, really well done. I was a gopher. Basically, you know, they'd say, go buy up all the reflective vests in downtown Ottawa. And that, you know, that would be my job for the afternoon. And whatever else, somebody'd call me and say, we got 15,000 hot dogs, buns, and condiments. Where do you want them?
Mm.
Someone else called and said, we've got over 100 porta potties, but you got to set them up. So I called my friends on the Ottawa Fire Department, and it was off-duty firefighters that set up the porta potties. And I said, you got to make sure you put one on Trudeau's office door. So Trudeau had a porta potty at his office door. Um, there was one guy showed up at the hotel with his teenage daughters, and every morning he'd give them an envelope stuffed full of $100 bills, and he'd tell the girls which streets to go down. And they were walking around with envelopes stuffed full of $100 bills, safe as can be. And they were walking up to trucks and saying, here's 100. Do you need more? And just walking down the line of trucks and giving out cash. We had another incident. We had trucks with firewood from Quebec, and they were stopped on the bridge on the Ontario-Quebec border by the Ontario Provincial Police.
Mm-hmm.
You know what we did? 40 below zero, we hand bombed the wood by hand on the Parliament Hill because they wouldn't let the trucks through. That's amazing. The things that happen, just amazing.
That's the
And
one thing. Sorry, go ahead.
anybody, we had top chefs working there, but if you wanted to eat, you just took the food. We didn't care if you were a trucker or homeless or who you were.
Mm.
And I saw more than once someone get a hot dog and a hot chocolate and lay down $100 for it.
Wow.
That kind of thing was going on. It's Canadians are wonderful people. and it would be our mutual benefit if we joined.
Yeah, I was just going to say, sort of jocularly, being a New Englander, we used to get a lot of the Canadian cold fronts, so I can speak to that. I don't know if we'd want your 40 below weather, but certainly you make great Canadian blue steel products for construction, which would definitely be hopefully mutually beneficial. And again, just kind of merging our resources and minds together. And yes, I've met a lot of great Canadians over the years who are very passionate like we are, and I think a lot of this stems from a lot of the division that the deep state wanted to concoct, and this unification would certainly counter that and allow us to start, as you said, working together and helping each other. So, as we close for now the podcast, Norm, because I know we could go on and extol the virtues of all the things that are going on. Where can people find your work or contribute to any of the stuff that you're doing? And last thoughts that you have for the audience.
My last thoughts, you can just Google my name. You can see it down there in the bottom left, Norman Traversy. And I'm all over the internet. And my last thoughts are very optimistic. I can hardly wait for the inauguration. And, people like RFK Jr. are awesome. Like, what a team. What a team that President Trump has put together. It's going to be really good. And I will be happy when Trudeau goes to prison, because I do believe he will be going to prison. And it's for crimes that are disgusting, that will come out. The truth will come out about him.
Absolutely. Good riddance to Justin Castro, as it were.
Yeah.
To be more precise. And what we'll do, as I said before, we'll leave all of the, I've already emailed all of your details to Chris, so we'll make sure to include those links in the description so people can see the quo warranto and the other documents and file at them at their leisure, because they're quite numerous and lengthy, chock with good information that I know the people would love to see. So Norman Traversy, thank you for your service. Thank you for your time on today's podcast. We look forward to having you on again with updates on the other side of the inauguration as we see the aftermath. We really appreciate all of your efforts as being a patriotic troublemaker, as you would say.
Yes, thank you. Oh, and by the way, the quo warrantos have also been requested by groups in Australia and New Zealand. I said, here's a Word document, take my name out, put your name in.
There you go.
And so they've spread.
Definitely. Oh, I'm sorry, just before I remiss to ask you, here in America, as we go back to the constitutional republic, we're going to have to retrain all of our branches of government to include police and so forth. Would you see that being a consequence in a good way for Canada with the Royal Mounted Canadian Police, where they're going to have to be retrained as well, I would think?
Well, I think we're going to dismantle the Royal Canadian Mounted Police. I think they're a corrupt agency. They're much like the FBI is corrupt in the States.
Right.
And we're going to need to change our education system so that people learn about politics. They learn about economics, because it's not being taught right now. We're learning about gender fluidity, or carbon footprints. No, we need to give kids a proper education, because what we're doing now is not good.
Completely agreed. Well, again, Norman Traversy, thanks for joining us. Look forward to having you again in the future. Take care. God bless you. And we look forward to seeing you down the road shortly.
Thank you. My pleasure.
Thank you.